And we begin with a Fox News alert. Moments ago, President Trump attending a dinner that's hosted by the president of South Korea and revealing a new trade deal has been reached between our two countries.
This comes ahead of Trump's high-stakes meeting with China's President Xi on Thursday.
Lucas Tomlinson is live from South Korea with more. Good morning, Lucas.
Well, good morning, Griff. Good morning, Ainsley. Good morning, Brian. President Trump has arrived here in South Korea, the third nation on his Asia tour. This started over the weekend in Malaysia, then to Japan, now here to South Korea, where President Trump just announced a new trade deal has been signed with South Korea's second largest trading partner, the United States.
And we had a tremendous meeting today with South Korea. I think the meeting a lot was determined, very much determined. And we made our deal. We pretty much finalized a trade deal. And we discussed some other things having to do with national security, et cetera.
Now, tomorrow, the high-stakes meeting between President Trump and China's leader Xi Jinping will take place. One meeting that is not on the table anymore is the meeting that President Trump said he was thinking about having with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un after the North Korean dictator's foreign minister visited Russia.
I know Kim Jong-un very well. We get along very well. We really weren't able to work out timing. We have President Xi is coming tomorrow, and that was something that obviously is very important to the world, to all of us. You'll be watching very carefully. We're meeting right here, and we're all looking forward to that. I think it's going to work out very, very well for everybody.
And President Trump here, one of the biggest issues to be discussed with China's President Xi Jinping is security. Here you see President Trump speaking to business leaders earlier. Over 1,700 business leaders from around the world, captains of industry here in South Korea, meeting with President Trump. President Trump received a number of gifts, the pomp and circumstance we've seen from other nations, beginning, if you go back to President Trump going to the Middle East back in May. But one of the main issues that President Trump was to talk to Xi Jinping about is curbing the chemicals that China is exporting to Mexico, which find their way to the United States in the form of fentanyl and killing tens of thousands of Americans. Here's President Trump on curbing fentanyl from China as part of his talks tomorrow.
So China's going to be working with U.S. law enforcement on fentanyl, or how is that going to work?
China's going to be working with me. Okay. They're going to be working with me, and we're going to do something, I believe.
It's like dancing.
No, I'm good.
Now, while trade is the backstop and backdrop of this visit here to South Korea, let's remind everybody there's 28,500 American troops here in South Korea. Tens of thousands have been here since the end of the Korean War. You also have the home of the 7th Air Force. We saw a fighter escort of Air Force One on approach here to the southeast corner of South Korea in Busan, where President Trump landed. 2 from the South Korean forces, 2 from the 7th Air Force. And the South Koreans, President Trump says he wants to see the South Koreans spend more on their forces, more in defense, and also on the American forces that are here. And what's notable is 90% of the expansion of Camp Humphreys, the largest overseas base in the world, which is right here in South Korea. The South Koreans are footing the bill, and President Trump says he appreciates that. He also appreciates this major trade deal, which will reduce U.S. tariffs on South Korea. One note about the dinner tonight, not sure if you saw who's also at that table, is Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, of course, on the flight over to Asia. President Trump putting 10% tariffs on the Canadians, but perhaps that's a story for another segment. Right now, South Korea's new President Lee, very excited to have President Trump here, and he bestowed him as the first American president to receive a crown, a very high honor that South Korea has bestowed for President Trump here on the peninsula, guys.
It would be a great, also be a great prop for the No Kings rally, which I'm sure there'll be a sequel. The president will go actually hold the crown.
I almost teed that up for you, Brian, but I knew you'd mention it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Lucas, the president just kind of casually says we've come to an agreement, come to an agreement on a trade deal. I mean, the 34 minutes ago, the headlines in the New York Times said a lot of pomp and so basically a lot of good feelings, but no trade deal. But you're saying there is a trade deal done. And do both sides agree a trade deal signed and it's finished?
Well, these things, nothing's ever finished till it's finished, Brian, when that ink goes to the paper. We saw President Lee visit the White House 2 months ago to work on this trade deal. Team's been working ever since, just like we saw in Japan as well. President Trump making that announcement when he just arrived here minutes ago. So some of the, the details still perhaps need to be worked out. Perhaps we'll learn more. But just like with the framework agreement with China, President Trump trying to get to the finish line with a number of Asian countries here in the region on his first trip to the Far East since returning to the White House.
And we're told there is a framework in place with China. Lucas Tomlinson live in South Korea. Lucas, thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.